these are both people who are going to serve another term on rec commission. So Amy's going to do a motion. You want the second. That's the other member on the rec commission. And then Scott will do letter C under new business. And probably Nicole will second. And then we're on.
So I'm trying to read.
So there's no old business and then.
Did you read
So on the citizen comment, I'll say this. I think it's yes to last
Then I will. Thank you.
She explained it. If you want to read it, anyway, never mind.
Testing exchanges are now, you could once the board's finished discussing.
Yeah.
I was expecting more people.
about that.
Yes.
I saw those.
Open it up.
This one guy that I know that used to serve on the park
But
district. Anyway.
Those were new? This?
No, don't worry. They're from the old
Yeah,
plan
that's what I
commissions.
thought.
Anyway, okay. Here we go.
Is that what's happening today?
I was surprised that it's good news.
There was people here for that.
Yeah.
That's why we're here when it was discussed. Okay.
Investment activity.
Oh, here.
Hmm. Okay.
And there's no action today, so then we'll just move on to the next item, which will be Bill's.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a good way to wrap it.
Well, isn't this the one that's right next door? Wasn't that kind of the point?
Oops. Got that one today, yes. Mm-hmm. There's this one. Oh, these are a lot.
I know, I get a lot of these. I just go through and delete them. Like this.
Oh, this one, I do read these occasionally, but no, this one.
Oh, because I didn't know what was happening. I saw these pictures and I didn't get
You
it.
can read all of the minutes. It's okay now, but you should go if you are ever inclined.
Scott will make a motion on the new business item C.
Okay.
Based on an agreement between the school district and us regarding the training exercise for public health and safety. It didn't go to a committee, so it's on under new business. So if I make that motion, then you can
Okay.
since you're on there.
Thank you. Will do.
All right. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the January 27th, 2025 regular meeting of the Village of Western Springs Village Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes and especially to honor those individuals who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. May we please have the roll call?
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Avakian.
Here.
Trustee Chen.
Here.
Trustee Fink. Here. Trustee Lewis.
Here.
Trustee Naraki.
Here.
Trustee Terrell.
Here.
All present.
Thank you very much. Moving to the next item on our agenda, citizen comments. And I would like to open to public comment at this time for anything other than the Heritage Crossing development located at 5600 Wolf Road. There will be a second opportunity for public comment limited to the Heritage Crossing development following the discussion of that item by the board. So any other public comment tonight? All right. If not, then we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is commission reappointments. We have two reappointments to the Recreation Commission. Both members have served one term, and I'm recommending both for the reappointment for another 3-year term. Unless there are any questions, this will be on for action tonight under new business. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Very good. Then let's move on to our committees, and I'll begin with General Government. Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, Madam President. The only two issues I have are the employee leasing agreement with MGT Impact Solutions and the IRMA alternate delegate resolution. We have discussed both of these in our workshop meeting, and they are on the agenda for tonight's omnibus vote. That's all.
Okay, thanks very much. Moving on to the Finance Committee report. Trustee Chen?
No report.
Okay, thanks very much. Moving then to Planning and Zoning Committee, Trustee Naraki.
Thanks, President Rolfe. I have a few items on my agenda for tonight. The first one being the downtown Western Springs market assessment update. The village has begun the process to update a market assessment for the downtown area. The village has an existing assessment which was completed in 2007. The assessment provides data on Western Springs market, including which other communities the village is competing with for customers and businesses. At the last meeting of the board, we reviewed the preliminary findings and directed staff and the consultant to finalize the draft. The draft was generated and provided for review to the board. Director Vallone and the village's consultant are here to receive feedback and answer any questions.
Thank you, Trustee Tyrrell. So I am here tonight, as well as Michael Blue, if you wouldn't mind standing, our consultant with TESCA, and Andrew Dunham, also with TESCA, who presented the preliminary findings at the last meeting and then provided the draft report that was provided to you. If there are any questions or feedback at this time from the board, we'd be happy to take those.
Anything further following our discussion last time?
I don't have any, no.
Okay.
So as indicated in the memo, staff will then work with the consultant to finalize the draft report to place on the February 10th meeting for formal consideration for adoption.
Okay. Very good.
The next item that I have, we're kind of out of order here, but is that okay, Heather? Like what I have on my summaries versus what we have on the report, right? The village zoning map and things. I'm not applying anything to that like we talked about, right?
So the next item that I see listed on the agenda after the market assessment is D, PC 24-02, comprehensive plan amendment for the long-range land use map.
Thanks,
Plan
I'm just looking,
development.
yeah, my agenda has A and B in front of that, so that's why I was just clarifying. I might print out one.
Yes, items were reorganized based on the resolution number, so that's why it may vary from what you had previously.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm following.
Yeah, you're
correctly.
fine.
Okay, very good. Okay, the next item on my agenda is the pending land use application PC-2024-02, a comprehensive plan amendment to the long-range land use map, conditional use for a planned development, variations, Lawn Avenue, right-of-way vacation and subdivision at 5600 Wolf Road, McNaughton Development LLC. At the last meeting, the board heard a summary from village staff on the application for the property commonly known as 5600 Wolf Road review from the Plan Commission. The committee reviewed the application at its last meeting on January 16th and advanced the application for the board's review and discussion. Director Vallone, can you please provide more detail on this item?
Absolutely. I'll start by introducing John Barry, if you wouldn't mind standing, John. John is here tonight on behalf of McNaughton Development LLC, who's the applicant. He also has his team of consultants with him, which I'll let him introduce. John is going to provide a presentation first, and then staff will cover a brief presentation after John provides his update.
Good evening. Thanks for having us again tonight. Just a very brief presentation, a little update from last time. These are our two plans that we've presented. The first one on the left is our original presentation back in May, and the one on the right is the latest plan that was recommended through the Plan Commission back in November. And we think we've made a lot of good improvements with this plan. Number one, the biggest change was the site access issue with the neighbors. We've changed that from Park Place to Wolf Road. And the second would be the stormwater. We've committed to improving the Lawn Avenue right-of-way with a new detention facility, an expanded detention facility. And we've provided some additional green space on the north end of the property to also help with the stormwater. This is just a sample of our engineering plan. You can see the expansion of the pond up in the upper left-hand corner. We think this plan is a substantial improvement to the existing property at 5600 South Wolf Road right now. We're going to bring this property back to its intended zoning, or its original zoning, before the office building was remodeled a number of years ago. And quite frankly, the office is it's obsolete now at this point. So this is a sample of our architecture of one of our 3-wide buildings, a great upgrade over the existing office building. So that's the 4-wide building. Our sample board material for the exterior of the building. These are our floor plans. We're offering, we'll have 2 floor plans. 18 of the units will be end units. 11 of them will be interior units. All the exterior units will offer elevator options on the building. So again, just being real brief, we've made a lot of great improvements on this plan. We like this plan. It's a marketable property, plenty more green space, better stormwater detention, and very good access. We think the infrastructure improvements will be a positive to the village. We know that the taxing benefits of this property will be a benefit to the village and the community. So, if you have any questions, I'm here tonight with my engineer, my landscape architect, and we can answer anything for you. Thank you.
So if there are no questions for the developer at this time, the applicant at this time. So if there are no questions at this time for the applicant, staff will then go through a brief presentation. All right. So as Mr. Berry showed, the plan has evolved over time. Originally, it was submitted for a Plan Commission meeting back in August. It had 2 iterations since that time. The one you can see on the left-hand side of the screen is the original proposal the Plan Commission reviewed in August of 2024, and then the current proposal. I'll go through the current proposal in more detail in a couple more slides. A couple things to mention though, the applicant has reconfigured the access point from Park Place onto Wolf. Additionally, they have redesigned the buildings down from 2 to 6 unit comprised buildings down to buildings of 3 and 4. Additionally, they have shifted the units further south from the existing townhome development to the north, which is known as Heritage Springs. So the applicant submitted an application back in May of 2024. Upon review, they submitted additional documentation. It was considered complete in July of 2024 and then was placed on a Plan Commission meeting August 13th of 2024. The Plan Commission reviewed it at 3 separate meetings. At that time, they provided feedback to the applicant, which drove the 2 plan revisions, as well as feedback from the public. At this time, it had been reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Committee on January 16th, and now is here at Village Board for a discussion. So as I mentioned, there was 3 Planning Commission hearings. The first was August 13th, the second was September 24th, and the last meeting was November 18th of all of 2024, where the Planning Commission reviewed the application and the standards for granting the various relief the applicant is seeking. They did recommend approval with conditions on November 18th, and the applicant had addressed a number of those conditions and submitted revised plans in December for review and then processing forward to the Village's Planning and Zoning Committee, and now here. So the site design, as I mentioned before, was reconfigured from the access being on Park Place to being Wolf Road, as you can see on the dashed arrow on the screen. Additionally, there is an access point proposed between Heritage Springs, again the existing townhome development to the north, and the proposed townhome development to the south. It is a swing gate that would operate for the residents of those 2 subdivisions by clicker, but would be improved with an Opticon sensor for emergency vehicle access. So an Opticon sensor is very similar to if you've ever been at a street light before and you hear sirens coming, you may see a light flash or be solid, and it changes the light to allow the emergency vehicle to come through. It would the gate here would access similarly if emergency vehicles needed to access the site in either direction. Additionally, you'll see in the crux of the site a circle that shows they're proposing 6 guest parking spaces. They're also proposing on-street parking on the west and south sides. As I mentioned before, they have reconfigured the buildings and they now have primarily 3-unit buildings and then 2 4-unit buildings. Again, the 3-unit buildings are outlined in red you see on the screen, and the 4-unit buildings are outlined in blue. The applicant has proposed architecture that's generally considered higher quality. They're proposing a fiber cement board material, architectural shingles, full depth brick veneer, and then powder coated railings and other engineered trim to ensure that these are low maintenance, don't require as much maintenance as typical sidings that are not fiber cement board or full brick veneer. The applicant is seeking zoning relief from the village. It is seeking deviations related to fence height, minimum development parcel size, minimum front yard, and other bulk requirements. Generally, the fence height variation is along the south and west sides of the property. The existing homes that are located adjacent to there benefit from the fact that the site is zoned office as opposed to residential, which currently allows them to have a higher fence than if it were to back up to residential. Since this is switching to residential, that would actually lower their permitted fence heights from 8 feet to 6. As such, the applicant is proposing an 8-foot fence to be on their property to maintain that higher fence. The minimum development acre parcel size is 5 acres. This is a minimum requirement regardless of type of zoning being requested. This would be the minimum size if it was a commercial development, an industrial development, residential, or etc. The way that the village actually measures density is not by the development parcel size. The village's zoning code requires a minimum lot area per unit, and in this case would require a minimum lot area per unit of just over 3,000 square feet, which the applicant is meeting and not requesting a deviation from.
If I can just interject, the 5-acre criteria that Director Vallone just mentioned, it's not a requirement, it's a guideline in your zoning ordinance. It's part of the plan development ordinance. It can be waived by the village board. Specifically, it says that in the zoning ordinance. And it is, at least in the opinion of staff, it's obsolete for where our village is today, and it's been obsolete for a number of years and something that's been kind of on the checklist to update. We have a number of developments in town, planned developments that have been approved with this waiver in place. Foxford, 154 Hillgrove Avenue, the Mike and Henry site at 17 Ogden, the townhome site up on Ogden Avenue. So the waiver of this 5-acre requirement is not unusual or atypical for a planned development in Western Springs. We are a landlocked community, and we don't have a lot of vacant open land of that size and mass to have that guideline be applicable. So just, I want to make sure the public and the board is aware of that.
As I mentioned before, they're also seeking some deviations from our yard requirements or bulk requirements. Generally, what you're seeing listed on the table are deviations they're seeking on the interior of the site. So, as I mentioned before, the site is comprised of a number of buildings. In between those buildings are generally where you're seeing the larger deviations from code. As an example, the existing building currently sits 20 feet from Park Place. The applicant is actually proposing that those buildings that are up to Park Place are actually starting at 25 feet from the property line, so they're actually shifting those buildings back. Again, the request for the bulk variations is more from the interior of the site, not necessarily from the exterior of the site. They're also seeking a deviation from our maximum building height, which I'll discuss in a later slide, and they're seeking some additional deviations in street design and also detention. So in building height, they are requesting a deviation from the village's maximum building height. Maximum building height is measured to the midpoint of the hip roof or gable. Code allows a maximum of 35 feet. They are seeking 36 and a quarter inch. Again, this is from the midpoint of the hip or roof. the maximum height all the way to the top of the ridge of the roof is not controlled. What this also means, though, is that this is from proposed grade. So essentially, what you see on the screen is their proposed grading plan. Their proposed grading plan shows that the units that back up to Park Place will have generally a elevation of 663 feet at their grade. And as you can see, the road is much higher. So what that means is that when you're standing on Park Place, the proposed grade itself doesn't start until it's 3 feet lower. So that actually pushes those buildings lower to the homes to the south. So standing again on Park Place, the actual grade for the buildings would be 3 feet lower than that. If you were up at the porches of the homes that are just further south of there, you're actually sitting 6 feet from the total grade. So again, it pushes those buildings further down to mitigate some of that perceived height. I'll let Director Koza discuss the street design and the detention variations that are being sought by the applicant.
Thank you. So on the screen right now, we have proposed and existing stormwater modeling. The site receives a significant amount of off-site stormwater bypass flows, essentially areas to the east and south of the site from unincorporated Greenwich Highlands. It happens to flow through this property. Essentially, there's a culvert under Wolf Road, and then stormwater flows west down the grade to an existing detention basin, and then from there flows northward towards 55th Street. So staff and the developer are aware of the stormwater flooding that can occur on the site. We've seen in recent years heavy, short duration, high intensity rainfalls have triggered flooding events. So the design was cognizant of that. A key benefit that they are providing to the site is they're essentially doubling the volume of that existing detention basin located to the west. So that will, as I said previously, will not solve our flooding issues in this area. However, it will help to make sure that the development itself does not cause any additional trouble to the area, as well as providing a small incremental benefit for the watershed. But as you can see in the mapping there, the existing stormwater flooding can encroach on the existing parking lot a little bit, but the proposed design keeps it contained to the detention basin area. The design of the roadway was modified during the Plan Commission process to account for the fact that there is existing stormwater that does pond in the existing Heritage Springs subdivision. So that design was modified so that the new homes will be able to access the street and head towards Wolf Road, while at the same time not the buffer between the developments provides space to allow the stormwater to flow essentially as it previously did with the existing pond systems. So in order to have the roadway connection to the existing Heritage Springs, which we feel is a benefit to both developments, the proposed roadway had to come down in elevation to meet existing. So the fact that there is stormwater on the far north end of that roadway was unavoidable in order to have that benefit of the roadway connection. Again, however, this type of flooding only occurs during extreme events, and it does have a short duration for when it covers the roadway. So staff feels the amenity of having the connection is far outweighs the negative of the temporary inconvenience of the stormwater. Yeah, so the street itself is proposed as a private street. This is similar to the arrangement that we have with the existing street to the north for the Heritage Springs development. And in fact, the roadway geometry is below our typical residential street as far as width goes. Typical street has a 27-foot width from back to curb to back to curb. The proposed development has 23 feet, but that it matches the existing development to the north that has functioned appropriately. Also, the roadway design elements for horizontal curve radius and vertical curve radius are below what would a typical residential street. Again, due to the low volume of the street and the fact that it's not a through street because of the gate, these variances or staff believes are appropriate, and they're in line with what was previously approved with the existing developments. Has functioned okay with as far as respect to the roadway.
Thank you, Director Koza.
Can I ask a question, Director Koza?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the stormwater proposed versus existing, I understand, from what I take it, that the area that's east of Wolf Road and south of this development is higher, so you're going to have this water flowing down naturally, correct?
Yes.
And the proposed has this box where there's box down on the bottom. What is that?
So, stormwater from off-site enters the site through an existing roadway culvert under Wolf Road, which is located right where the existing driveway to the site is located. So stormwater from the east will flow under the roadway through the culvert, and currently it comes up and flows along the north edge of the property westward through a rock channel and then across the parking lot to the detention basin. So the proposed design is designed to keep that stormwater flow within a proposed box culvert, which is essentially a square pipe in the ground. So that pipe will take the water from Wolf Road westward to...
Right there where your pointer is. Is that something that the developer's putting in?
Oh, yes, I apologize. I didn't
That
explain
box,
that.
what is that?
Yeah, so that is a small detention basin. It'll be used as a settling basin to help control sediment migration. But it is a little bit of additional added detention. Again, that was just to maximize the detention volume on the site that was added after, during the Plan Commission review process.
And you mentioned that they were making improvements, the detention basin on the left compared to the right. Can you explain how those improvements, how they work?
Yeah, so there happens to be existing infrastructure in the ground beneath the detention basins, some stormwater pipes that take water away from the site. So because those pipes are present and functioning, the existing detention basin was able to be lowered, I believe 2 to 3 feet in most locations. So that was able to essentially, that allowed the detention basin capacity to expand because they're able to dig deeper and make a bigger hole to store more water. And because ordinarily you can't do that because you need gravity to take the water away, but there happened to be a pipe in place under the existing detention basin. So that will be kept in place and used to take away stormwater from the basin. So without that, you would need like a pump system, which isn't necessarily a good idea. Requires a lot of maintenance and can be a little bit of a headache to operate for HOA.
But the detention basin's deeper and bigger?
Yeah, the volume, the calculations show approximately double in size compared to the existing condition.
Thank you.
As Attorney Drusik mentioned, there have been other plan developments that the board has reviewed over time. On the screen, you'll see a table of other developments that have been somewhat similar or have been more recent. Heritage Estates, which is the development that is just to the north of this property, sought similar variations related to the setbacks for their units. They also sought a reduction in the development parcel size, and they also they may have requested a height variation. We don't have a set of as-built plans to verify, but they're essentially 2 stories. Timber Trails development that most of you might be familiar with also sought deviations from our code related to the bulk requirements, the yard requirements. They did meet the development parcel size as it was over a 100-acre parcel. They did not request a variation from height. 17 Ogden, or also known as the former car auto body shop, sought, which are now improved with the townhomes that you see over at Ogden. They also sought deviations from the minimum yard requirements, the development parcel size, and from the maximum height. Foxford sought a number of deviations, again, from bulk, although it was located in the downtown and is a mixed-use zoning district. They did seek a variation from the minimum developmental parcel size, and then also a height variation. And then again, listed on the bottom is the deviations requested by the applicant, just for comparison. So the Plan Commission reviewed the application related to the guidelines that are listed in the village's development control ordinance. As you see on the screen, the development control ordinance lists standards for all of the relief being sought by the developer. They evaluated the application against it at the November 18th meeting and determined that it should be recommended for approval. So the Plan Commission recommendation that was made did have a number of conditions related to it. There were conditions that were kind of grouped into categories that I'll kind of cover right now. So there was a general category which included a number of conditions that the village has historically placed on other planned developments. Things such as requiring them to obtain outside agency permits that are required, having controls within the development for the HOA to have sufficient funds to maintain the infrastructure, additionally some other general requirements, engineering requirements that were highly technical in nature, but also included some conditions that we've included in other plan developments. For example, that they had to submit proper final engineering plans for permit. Additionally, they had a handful of landscaping requirements, which they have incorporated in their plans. There were conditions related to rights-of-way, road, and traffic, and then signage. Generally, the applicant has either complied with all of the conditions listed by the Planning Commission, or have indicated in writing that they will do so prior to permit. As I mentioned earlier tonight, where we are in the process is that this is the first time the village board has had an opportunity to discuss it. The application would tentatively be placed on the February 10th meeting for formal consideration. There are some items the applicant would need to complete administratively, and also may need to update depending on any conditions that the board discusses tonight. One of those being obtaining written confirmation that the Heritage Springs subdivision to the north will allow the cross-access easement. I can take any questions you have at this time, or if there's any additional questions for the developer.
Director Vaughn, can you pull up the picture of what the units actually look like real quick?
I have one photo. I
Yeah.
can also bring up the applicant's presentation.
Sure, that's fine right there. So as I'm looking at this and seeing how does the water come off the roof? And I don't see like gutters or downspouts or anything like that. Is it just falling off the side of the structures, or it's hard to tell from this picture?
There are gutters included, yes, and traditional downspouts. The rendering does not get into that level of detail, but they did include architectural plans that will comply with our requirements.
Okay.
Once it comes off the roof, in the gutter system and downspouts, where does the water go from there? Go underground? Does it just naturally go on to the landscape?
You know what, this is the board discussion portion. We will have public comment and questions as soon as the board is done. Thank you.
I guess on that note, though, I'd be wondering, does the water that come off the roof, does it flow into that, what you showed us earlier, that water roadway that leads into the box and then the other detention?
Yeah, so our code would require all downspouts to discharge within 5 foot of the foundation. So we would expect that for this development. And then generally speaking, the stormwater from the site drains to the west to the detention basin. So the roadway will have storm pipes and inlets that ultimately discharge to that detention facility.
But it's not the ones that get buried into the ground and then it goes through the grass to get there?
No, that'd be like a direct connection to the sewer. We don't typically allow that for downspouts. We typically require them to splash on grade, and the rationale there is to try and give the best chance possible to allow infiltration into the ground versus allowing runoff directly to the storm sewer.
Thank you.
Additionally, there are no basements proposed in the units. They are slab on grade.
So the current office use, it's mainly parking lot with impermeable surface. Has that changed much? Is it still, I guess like, it seems like this might have better permeability.
Yeah, so based on the site design and the calculations, and mostly due to the removal of that large parking lot like you're discussing, I believe there's a reduction in impervious surface for the proposed development of approximately 10 to 12%, I forget which number it is, but there is a reduction from the existing condition of impervious surfaces.
Could somebody address the traffic study about the traffic coming in and out of Wolf Road from the ingress-egress area? I don't know if there's been a traffic study done, no doubt. What are you expecting as far as cars coming in and out of the?
So, yes, there has been a full traffic study that's been provided to both to the village and the county. And a product like this typically would, the traffic study called for approximately 210 trips in and out of the development daily when it's fully stabilized.
What does that mean, 210? I mean, how is it, 5 an hour, 10 an hour? I mean, how do you divide that up?
So they really analyze it from peak hours in the AM, so roughly 7:30 to 8:30 in the afternoon, and then another peak hour typically probably from 4:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. I don't have the study with me today, but you're probably talking about 20-ish trips in the peak hours, and then the rest of the other 170 trips per day is scattered, throughout the rest of the hours.
Does Cook County have to sign off on this because it's a county road, Wolf Road?
They do, yes. Our plans are in for review right now with Cook County.
But this is a one-way through the whole thing, right? Or no?
No, it's a full access road that we're connecting to the Heritage Springs also.
If you're going into Heritage Springs from this project, is it only for these residents, or can anybody? Could I drive through there and just go into Heritage Springs, or do you have to be a member of one of the two?
You have to be a member of one of the two associations.
So there's going to be a gate? Or
Yes,
something?
yeah, we're proposing a gate right in between the two subdivisions.
So, Director Blunt, where else do we have private roads? I mean, obviously the existing one to the north.
We have limited private roads here. We do have the one to the north. We do have a gate in another area, though, if that was more of the question. We do have a gate that is situated just in the south of Ridgewood, actually, that actually separates the Timber Trail subdivision from Ridgewood. And that is only operational for emergency vehicles through clickers, not through an Opticon sensor.
I apologize if I did not see it in the packet. Are there basements on these townhomes?
No, no basements.
Okay, I think that's important to note. Okay.
I want to bring up a common theme that I saw in a lot of the residents' comments as far as density. And when we spoke in our planning and zoning meeting, Mr. Berry said that there would be like 2.1 people per unit. Now these are units with 3 bedrooms in them inside, so you would think that would be probably more than 2.1 people living in these types of units with the 3 bedrooms. So with that, and I did some research, you could put up to 6 people per bedroom, right? Or 6 people per unit, because you have 2 people per bedroom. So if we talk about those types of things, you could have that's not, we're talking about the low end of 2.1. The high end would be 6 per unit. So you're talking about going to potentially 174 people living in this area. And I understand, we're looking at both sides. You're probably not going to get to that number, that's the extreme. But you're trying to put into, with driving and coming through with parking and as part of it, and people coming and going with the traffic study. Obviously in this development, there's only 6 parking spots. If the potential happens that you get to, I don't know, we'll say if there's 2.1, you're talking about 58 people, right, give or take, and you get to 100, where are these people parking with short driveways and only 6 parking spots in here. There's really no other area for them, for these potential residents to have guests come over, and it would put stress into the neighborhood at that point. Additionally, these units have been marketed as empty nesters for empty nester people, or people that want to stay in Western Springs that are looking to downsize. And these units are 1,800 to 1,900 square foot properties. They have, not every unit has an elevator, as Mr. Berry alluded to. They're an add-on to the structure, so they're not built into these pieces. So if you have people that are looking to downsize and have less steps and things like that, there's 6 steps to walk into the unit, and then if you want to go to the second floor, it's 20 steps. So that, I would think that would dissuade certain people that are empty nesters from moving in. It kind of gets more into a family-oriented situation where it's like, oh, I have 3 bedrooms, I have 2 floors, I can get easy access to all of the great things that Western Springs has to offer in this area. I just want to make sure everybody's thinking about these things as well when this development is going through. That, you know, other residents have brought up timber trails in the past and how we should learn from that development and what went on. You know, we're still trying to sell houses in there now, and it's been how many years? What if that same thing happens here and we don't get the tax revenue that we're expecting to have right away? I mean, we haven't realized that yet in this regard either. So I just want to make sure everybody's thinking of all these other things that are going on. I mean, obviously stormwater is an important piece of this. We know that from many of the meetings we've had as a board in trying to solve this problem, and implementing the water utility tax to help solve this. And we got some great projects in the hopper for that to help elude with these types of things. But there's a lot that goes into this project, so I just hope everybody's taking the time to think about that and weigh those concerns and facts that are going on here.
If an elevator gets put in, does it go from the garage, from the street level up? And are you losing a bedroom if you put an elevator in?
No, well, first, it starts at the garage level and goes all the way up to the bedroom level, and no, the way that they're arranged in that particular unit, we've made it work with the same number of bedrooms.
So you just like lose a closet or something in there?
It's kind of built as, if you don't go with the elevator option, it'll look like a pantry maybe on the main level and a closet on the second floor.
So that's how those townhouses on Harvey were situated, and I think half of them had elevators put in. I mean, not that every townhouse complex is going to be the same, but
sure.
Mostly you saw downsizers go there. That was kind of the draw.
How expensive are these elevators, adding onto the
Those were
cost?
45. I don't know what are yours.
45,000?
Yeah, the elevators are going to run you about $45,000, $50,000. Yeah.
You must have done a market study on this?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do a formalized market study. I mean, we spent time as far as, for instance, looking at the Harvey property, and I believe 4 of the 5 are closed now. The last one's probably pending. And you're right, there was some that, some went with elevators, some did not. We've interviewed the broker who sold that, to your point as far as who the target market is, and all 5 of those people are empty nesters. So
Yeah,
pretty
I guess
confident.
I'm concerned that if you've got 29 properties, and if half of those are larger size families, then you could have much more congestion than you're planning for. But on the other side of that, I take it these are, how much are you hoping to market these for?
We're looking at it in the mid-800s to base pricing.
So a small family would probably be better off getting a regular standing house in Western Springs that they could still purchase for that kind of price. I mean, is that accurate from?
Well,
Plus,
if the inventory ever comes back, that would be a better question. But that's exceedingly becoming the average price here. It used to be less.
Trustee Jim Mulgeen, I'm the attorney for McNaughton Development. In terms of the question regarding the number of people that would be in one of these units, the number of children that would normally be in these units is something, for example, that the school district is very concerned about because obviously it impacts the number, the enrollment at their schools. And that analysis is the same analysis that we run. So in terms of what those numbers are in that 2.1, that's going to be fairly accurate as far as the number of people. You're not going to see a number that's averaging 6 or even anywhere close to that. And once again, the analysis that gets done is similar to the analysis that gets done by the school districts because they need to know what their enrollment levels are. And enrollment is, when we talk about density on its own is not really you know, it's not really good or bad, although, you know, considering the housing shortage that we're faced, it's probably, you know, increased density is overall probably a good thing for, you know, for the U.S. in general. But what we do look at is what impact that density has on the area residents. And what we've provided throughout this entire process, we're talking about in terms of a traffic report that showed that there is sufficient, the roadways can accommodate what is being proposed, that the stormwater detention that we're providing is actually enhancing the stormwater detention that's being presented on site. So you can look at just at the number of units, but what you really need to look at is the impact. And throughout the process, there just hasn't been any negative impact that has been supported you know, by any information in terms of any countervailing traffic report or any negative review of the stormwater detention. So we believe that the density that is being proposed can be accommodated by the site. Everything that's been presented and reviewed by the village substantiates that. Thank you.
But you'll definitely get a lot of young families that are trying to get into this town for $800,000.
That's my exact point,
And it's
too.
a brand-new building, and they love brand new. Like, for
Right.
sure, it's gonna be a popular commodity for both audiences.
Sure,
It-
and, oh, go ahead, Scott.
Is the front driveway in front of the garage long enough to accommodate a car or two cars?
Yeah, every driveway accommodates 2 cars, and I guess,
In
going
addition
back
to the garage.
In addition to the garage, right. I guess,
I just want to clarify, there are 3 units, 21, 8, and 15 can only accommodate 1 car in the driveway, but have garages for 2 cars. The second spot is slightly shorter than the minimum requirement for a parking stall. But generally, the bulk of them can accommodate 2 cars.
just the product itself, though, I just don't see it conducive to, like, real family living from the standpoint of, I mean, you want a yard, right? You know, you swing set, whatever, you know, trampoline in the backyard. You know, with no backyards, this is all common area. Honestly, I don't see it being very kid-driven. I mean, maybe you get somebody who moves in and they have that first child is in the crib still and stuff, and they're gonna move out. But I think it's gonna be predominantly still empty nesters, active adults.
I think the cost of the units would keep it that way. If these units were a third of the cost, I think you'd have a real density problem. But I just can't see a lot of new families wanting to come here when they can get a house with a yard, which hopefully we have enough of those in Western Springs.
We do not.
That's, yeah.
I'm like, we do not.
That's what I was asking.
We do not.
Do we have those?
No.
Yeah, and there was this study for Timber Trails too, right? That said, oh, here's the study, there's not gonna be that many kids, and then we had to put an addition on the Grange Highlands to accommodate that, right? So we can look at that, but you don't really know what's going to happen until people start moving in. And this is a desirable area with great schools and great downtown and all these things that people look for. And it's rated, was all over the news, rated #1 in America.
And a lot of people want to stay here.
They do.
Who want to downsize.
Yeah,
So
I think
both.
you'll have, attraction
Both ends.
from all, and somewhere in between probably too.
Because of the inventory in
Yeah,
general.
well, and just, it's maintenance-free living, and it's new, and it's a nice neighborhood. I mean, there's a lot of attractive qualities about it.
From a density perspective, kids, like, does that bother you? Like, I feel like kids in a neighborhood would be good. I get it from the school's perspective, and I know the schools have a very big interest, but, like, is that gonna give you more cars? I guess they're going to get driven to school.
That's right, cars coming out and going, and.
I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not sure from a density perspective if.
I mean, I can see
there's
this
not
point,
kids.
little kids turn into high school kids, and then you'd have cars all over the place here. I just can't see a lot of
No, I
families
understand.
with that coming into this project. If they have the money, they hopefully wait and find something better suited for a bigger family.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if any of us know, perhaps, but.
But that
yeah.
2.1 figure was that came from some kind of a study?
It's a typical population chart that schools and municipalities use. The 2.1 is based out of a population chart that a lot of schools and municipalities use for determining populations in new developments.
To that point, the village does require impact fees related to recreation and schools. That calculation the applicant provided, and that's what's included in their application, showing the calculation based on our code for that impact fee and how many are anticipated to be generated.
Well, I assume that the economics of this space drive your decision for what you're developing. I don't know, if you want to develop this, I don't know what other choices there are, you know, as far as the economics. I lived through Foxford, which was downtown, and like, you know, the worry was if you get a developer who's interested and they don't because we don't allow it, then is the site just going to go vacant and unused? And I don't know what the economics are, but it sounds like this is the way it can work to develop this site, townhomes.
Yep. We see it as the most viable product to redevelop this property.
Yeah. Oh,
Is it not picking up?
am I too
Oh,
far?
Sorry. Oh, yours or mine?
Did you want me to re-say what I said? Oh, I was just saying the economics of developing this property. It is a vacant, mostly a vacant office building right now. I don't know what opportunities there are to develop it. I mean, single-family homes, I don't know if that economics makes sense, if a condo building, you know, what are the options for development that a developer would be interested in developing the site? And this is what's being proposed, so it's not a question.
Other questions?
I keep interrupting the presentation. Are we still going through the presentation, or are we questions? Okay.
No, the presentation is complete.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, if there's currently no more questions or discussions from the board, we should open it up then to public comment.
Sure, that sounds good. Okay, we'll open up to public comment now. Whoever wants to speak from the audience, please come up, say your name, say your address, and speak in the microphone, please.
It's just the name only. They
sorry,
don't
we
need to give their
the
address.
Okay,
Yeah.
George Rogers. Give you a little bit of history on this land. When Mr. Gake bought this property, the village made an intelligent decision because they considered part of that parcel to be non-buildable. So when it was non-buildable, that provided retention area for the water that came from the highlands. Prior to that, Ridgewood had flooding. After that, they did not. Heritage Estates was a big mistake. We were lied to by the village engineer at the time, and was approved by the village board, telling us that would not have an impact on our flooding. It did. You talk about economics, I'm talking about my quality of life. When my basement floods and I have to have the crawl space dug out, put in French drain, an additional sump pump, that's a huge negative. We have an opportunity to reestablish retention area in that area between the LaGrange Highlands and Ridgewood. This is a great opportunity to do that. I'm not against development, but packing 10 pounds of dirt in a 3-pound bag is taking away retention area. I've talked with Jeff Kozer, at least I've heard him speak, and we're going to address the Ridgewood flooding later. Why aren't we addressing it now? Why are we going to eliminate a potential solution or part of that solution by developing all of this property? We heard John Barry talk about infrastructure improvements that would be an advantage to the village. It's not an advantage to the village, it's an advantage to that property. We've heard from the village engineer, we've heard from McNaughton engineers, this is going to have no impact on Ridgewood flooding. So we're not improving infrastructure of the village. Parking, I know Phil has brought this up. When you say there's parking on the left, on the west and the south side of the street, how much of that street is not driveway? What do you get, additional 1 or 2 parking spaces in addition to the 6? Just doesn't seem like very much. I didn't see anywhere in the packet where an impact on the market of the surrounding community was done. Was that waived for any particular reason? What's the impact on the other properties in Ridgewood with this development? We heard from their attorney that the school did an analysis. Did District 106 actually do an analysis of this specific property as to what they thought the population density was going to be?
I think he said they did.
Did District 106 do an analysis?
I'm not aware of whether they did or not.
Did the high school do an analysis?
What I indicated is the process that we used for determining the projected population on this site is the same one that is used by those governmental entities, including the village.
Okay. I'm just wondering why we're not addressing the stormwater issue in Ridgewood. You're going to ask me on April 1st to pay more money to address infrastructure issues, and I've seen repeated mistakes made in the Ridgewood area. Heritage Estates was a big mistake. Putting a fire station that we don't even staff is a big mistake when we could have discontinued to rent with Pleasantdale. You had a berm that was moved, created flooding in your area. So 3 mistakes made right in that area. Why are we not addressing that? Why are you going to ask me for more money to put good money after bad, or however you want to say that? But it just makes no sense to me. You know, I don't, you know, maybe you put 20 units on this and you leave a bigger retention area. I can tell you that LaGrange Highlands is not going to have more pervious area as we go forward and bigger homes are built in that area. We're going to have more impervious. We're going to have more rainwater. We're going to have more severe weather events. Jeff Koza said these are extreme events, but in August we had an event that actually flooded or would have flooded that area. Why are we improving a development that has an infrastructure deficit when we're trying to address infrastructure deficits? Just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else from the public like to come up and speak?
How far down the line is Ridgewood on our infrastructure? How far down the line is Ridgewood? So it's top of it. That's it, yeah, that's really. That's what I thought.
Barry Allen. The new, as mentioned just a minute ago, new Tower Topics just came out. Listed as a key concern, stormwater management, probably not a surprise to anyone. $45 million referendum coming. That's an awfully big number. More on that in a minute. The developer, Mr. Berry, talked about the property taxes. That is a benefit. In your packet, under Schedule M, is a listing of the benefits to the village. It was 1.6 million was the top line headline number. A little context on that number. That was actually a 20-year number. Starts off at about $64,000 a year, and then grows, and they're giving you the cumulative number. That's a gross number. You also have to consider that the current property pays roughly to the village about $10,000. So the net number is about $55,000 to the village from the development. So what does that mean, like in context? Well, grab the recent water bill, and on here is the stormwater and capital maintenance fee. It's about $45 now every two months. That's $270 a year. Across the whole village, that's over $1 million. So what you're adding here to the residents is 20 times what this property is going to donate to the village in terms of annual property tax. So please keep that the $55,000 in mind. It's about $15 for each homeowner or each resident here. Okay, and then what I just handed out was from the Plan Commission. It was a staff memo dated November 15th. The actual plan commission was 3 days later, on November 18th. But nevertheless, in the memo on page 16, it says that the plan commission felt that these were generally acceptable variances for a development control ordinance. The last page shows a chart of what's been going on with the development control ordinance. It's just basically the same information that was presented on the table in the presentation, but it's just a graphic representation. So what seems to be happening is every time a board grants waivers, that just becomes the ante. And then the next developer takes that and goes even further. So you can see the trend. And what's really unclear, which I appreciated your comments, sir, is what's enough here? Like, these are not insignificant variances. These are 40, 50, 60, 70% variances from our development control. So what's okay then? Is it 80? That's probably not okay, but 75 is. And so where does that lead you? And you got a lot of comments about from residents for this development, probably 10 to 1 with concerns about flooding and density, traffic, and so forth. And it's because this doesn't fit with our development control ordinance. It's so far removed from that. And what's going to happen is when the next development will come along, it'll be the new starting point for negotiations. And remember, this is $55,000 a year of impact, and residents are paying $1 million a year on their water bills. If you also want to go back a little bit further, I think it's about 20 years old, the comprehensive land use plan that came out, that had a lot of village resident feedback on it. It's a little bit dated now, it's about maybe 20 years old. But the comments in there were interesting. There was feedback about stormwater management even 20 years ago. It's been an issue. Probably the number one concern was to keep the village charm. That's what's important to your residents. They want the village charm. What's not on there is not one comment about we want more density, but yet that's what this is giving us. The comments about flooding, you know, like the last flood event, like you couldn't safely drive your vehicle through the streets. I went out on bicycle, and the water coming through Heritage Springs, down through the South Fire Station, it's had movement. It was above your ankles, and you know, residents are now having to fortify their homes. There's testimony from the 3 plan commission meetings about residents spending thousands of dollars to divert water around their house because these stormwater issues aren't getting fixed. And what's really rich is the comment, you're spot on, about the Gakes and the Heritage Springs or Heritage Estates. They donated that land to the village. They donated, they gave it to the village as green space. The village had another idea and said, oh, that's development. And guess what? Guess who's reaping the benefits of that with flooding? Because the water's coming right through LaGrange Highlands, over Heritage Springs, it's flooding over there. The South Fire Station is much bigger than was originally thought. It's keeping coming down. And so the village, the residents here are having to spend money, their own money, to fix issues because they're not getting addressed. So what could you guys do as, you know, as the board? Well, you have a lot of power. And the ideas of, thank you for all your questions on the flooding and the density and things like that, they're spot on. 29 units in like a 3-acre property, that's 0.1 acres per unit. It doesn't fit in with the development control. It's you know, taking out 5 units, would that help? Absolutely. It's also important, President Rudolph, you were involved in this, this whole that the village wants to be green and have a nice environmental footprint. This is your opportunity to say, is that real? And you know, some residents were also soliciting or offering comments to put some impervious surface, either on the roads or the parking spots. It's not going to solve the world, but it shows that you're serious, that you're trying to help us and reduce the flooding that's coming through our village. But the one that really gets me, and apologies, Casey and Matt, Ridgewood Oaks. That's been going on for over 10 years. is out of compliance. We've spent over $250,000 on that for 10 years, still hasn't been fixed. So it's really not a very great thing when we're having flooding and that's just sitting there and it's not being able to be fixed. So it all comes back to this comment, $45 million you want from us on top of the $270 we're already paying for this, and some of these issues aren't getting addressed, and they're being made worse by different decisions, not this board, but prior boards have made to allow developments or not fix things that would help your residents. And so I hope you guys, thank you for your service, and by the way, Ellen, your staff was great. They were super helpful. Let's see, Heather, Kelsey, Casey, and John were very responsive, provided really great communication and answered questions. But the buck stops with you. And we'll know if you're serious when I'm sorry, wrong one, $45 million comes out and what you guys decide to do with this plan. Thank you very much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Ridgewood like top of the charts for what's being fixed next? And have you read the infrastructure, aren't they up there? No? Yeah.
Yes, the Ridgewood
Yes.
Stormwater Project and the Springdale Stormwater Project are the top on the list.
Yes, and there have been some improvements, like the whole Flag Creek. Microphone, please. Oh, sorry, thank you. The whole Flag Creek, because the water's going directionally down from Grange Highlands down to Flag Creek, and there were some storm outflows, man, you know this better than I do, but that were out, in disrepair.
Yeah, the outfalls.
And the Flag Creek couldn't hold it, would start backing up, and then our streets would flood. So you're absolutely right. There is unfortunately a disproportionate amount of flooding in Ridgewood and Springdale.
Well, I'm glad it's close to the top of the list, but another reason why we need the referendum, right? There's not enough to fix everything, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not gonna, and I think staff will get back to you, but I think there's a difference between the referendum and the stormwater fee. We also are looking to issue bonds with the monies that's coming out of your stormwater fee. That's separate, and that can be addressed by staff thereafter.
Other public comment?
David. Many of those who are present tonight have heard me in the past. I've been up here numerous times. I am 100% opposed. The project is way out of character for our beautiful neighborhood of residential homes. I don't want to be repetitive, but it's really a concern, especially too, the construction project is supposed to take at least 2 years. And also take into consideration those of us who have lived there 20 years and have paid high taxes for the neighborhood and the schools. Doesn't that count for something? It just seems so out of character. One thing too that everyone has heard from me, we moved in 2005 and there was approval for the huge home behind us. And I'm to the south of Park Place, and we had a terrible problem with water. And we spent $16,000 in 2005 with Country Landscaping to get all the water away from the house. I came to the village, and there wasn't anything that could be done. I came to the meetings, and we paid $16,000 to get the water away, and that was 20 years ago. So I just want you guys to think long and hard. There are those of us who have lived here in Western Springs, and it is just too much to jam all those units in that area. It's just too much. And the parking. We have parties along Park Place, and there are so many cars, and you have to assume that a lot of these people, young ones older people with families. We need parking. We need parking. It's just too much. So please just take some of this into consideration. There are those of us who have been around for all these years and paid high taxes too.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to come up and speak?
Perhaps I can speak without the microphone. Okay, very good.
It's so that the
My
recording.
wife always says,
The
we don't
recording
need
takes-
All right, this is better?
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is the second meeting I've gone to.
Can we get your
and-
name, please?
Yeah, name.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Anthony J. Perino. I live on Forest Avenue in Western Springs. I was here the last time, and I think many of these questions have come up again today. And I appreciate the fact that you've amplified on that, because I've looked at this a little different way, but I do have an appreciation for water problems in this town. And a lot of them are inherent with the fact that I believe we have a pretty high water table. I know in my own personal life, I've had to put 3 French drains in just to get the water from my sump pump to the back of the lot so that my lawn wasn't rotting. So I really, I concur with you that this water situation has got to be addressed, so when everybody comes out of here, they can say, I think we've solved it. And I think the key things that keep coming up is density, because if you have a lot of density, you're going to have water problems right off the bat. You know, you could possibly mitigate some of these things. You can't control nature. The key thing is it can be managed enough, given the number of units that are going into this concept. I came with the idea sometimes, because I'm an empty nester right now. My house is basically a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathhouse, and 5 days of the week, it's way too big. 2 days of the week, it's way too small. Grandchildren make a change around. I thought perhaps that would be very good for my wife and myself is to move to a place that basically gets us away from the square footage that we have now, being empty nesters. And I looked at and I was a little bit confused when I saw the square footage of these 2 houses, these 2 plans that are going in. What is it, 1,800 and 2,000 square feet? Something like that. Maybe it's a little bit more. Empty nesters don't need that kind of square footage. And I was kind of surprised to say, okay, is this really for me and my family? Or is it for somebody who has 2 or 3 kids that needs the space? Now, if you get into 2 or 3 kids, then you get into other situations. These kids have to go to school. Do we have enough capacity for these children to go to school? Or are we looking at another situation? I would tell you this, from what I can understand in this village, and I've seen it in my own block, population goes up and down like this with school children. When I moved in my block, there were a lot of school children, including my own. Then it went down to practically nothing. Now it's back to enough. People move out of this town pretty much in a pine box. They stay for that long time, and then after they stay. That's, and for myself, I'd like to delay that pine box, and I'd like to be in a place where I could be in a 2-bedroom place. I was really confused when they basically, and I think Phil, you mentioned this up, that basically you have a unit now that goes 20 stairs up to the 2nd floor, if you could go into that. I can't, and a lot of my friends, and probably a lot of people say, man, 20 things to go up to the 2nd floor, where you might have a great room with a television set, and six steps just to ring the doorbell. Now, you could go through the garage, and then I don't like my friends to go through my own garage and trip over a snowblower or something like other things to do that. So these things have to kind of be looked at and just basically, do we really have the right design? And if you put a elevator in, I think that elevator's gotta have controls one way or the other. It's either gotta be on top of the elevator to pull it up and down, or or below grade to put the controls in there. I guess there are elevators now that they run with the controls on the side. I'm not quite sure about that. I can't believe that it would be less money than if you're burying your controls. So you have these other things. Now, I'd like to ask for a little clarification with Attorney Jurasek on utilities coming in from the street to basically it ends up that your power meter goes there. From what I understood, and please clarify this for me, that the utilities that come in from ComEd, Northern Illinois Gas, and the like, are they paid for? Who pays for that? Does the developer pay for that? So it goes to the termination point and then goes to the individual units? Because from what I understood you saying, that at a certain point, the people who own these units are going to be assessed a certain amount of money for utility completion. Am I correct in that?
Sir, Mr. Perino, what I know is the utilities currently service this lot.
Yes.
To the extent the utilities have to be oversized, upsized, extended after the units are built, if the project is approved, that's a developer cost.
Okay.
And since they're individual townhome units, they'll be separately metered for all their utilities, so that the future owners will pay their own utilities.
Oh, they're gonna, yes, they're gonna pay their own utilities.
That would be my assumption, but the village isn't incurring any utility costs, to support this project, and that would be 100% on the developer.
Okay, so basically, the owner is paying for the usage of the utilities, as you would in any thing. Okay, that helps me understand that. Couple of things here, I looked at the rendering here. To me, art is in the eyes of the beholder. I can appreciate their design. I'm more concerned at this point, not with finishes, but in construction methods, and that hasn't been addressed yet. When I built my house, or I didn't actually build it, but I bought it while it was going up, I believe it was all construction with basically stick construction. Okay, is this going to be stick construction, which supposedly gives you some certain advantages? One of them being your attic is going to be larger than if you do what they call truss construction with gusset plates and the like, which basically, for the most part, reduces your attic space. Now, given the fact that these townhomes, are going to be built on a slab, there is a need for storage space other than a two-car garage that basically people may have to go through the garage to get in an elevator to go up to the first floor or the second floor. Windows. Energy is a big concern for everyone. I've seen more developments go up with what I call contractor-grade windows. Okay, what does that mean? Windows with low efficiencies for basically wind and cold going there. I'd like to get an idea of basically what are these construction parameters beyond surfaces on the side, which is, let's call it mixed media, a combination of wood, masonry, and the others. These are things that concern me if I were going to be moving here. I really had the thoughts of moving here, or at least entertaining it, and now I see something that's going up way more square footage than I want, but I could see young families wanting that kind of square footage for either the near or maybe the midterm, until they basically say, okay, we got 3 kids down, no place to park. Well, you got to park a couple blocks away from it, but people like to have their kids close by. So I see that as something that really has to be, looked at more closely than perhaps we've thought about this. Now, in the end, I think it really comes down to, you've got a very difficult decision to make here. You really do. You've got a lot of people who are talking about concerns for water. They've got to be basically addressed. There's no doubt about it, because once this goes in, it's very difficult to change and say, gee, we could have, would have, should have done something else. You're stuck with it. And to hear these comments from people that said, we've been down this road before, and it did not look good for us. And now you're basically looking at a situation where, well, can we Band-Aid it? No. Last, speaking to the infrastructure referendum that's coming up, you know, a lot of these things have to do with water. Right now, water mains are breaking like crazy in this town. And it's coming there, and you can say, well, a lot of it is downtown and things like that. Well, you know, is it? Yeah. A lot of traffic on there. It really compromises, in many cases, water mains. Well, I'll tell you, it's coming your way, because when you've got water mains that are 100 years old, it's just a matter of, you know, of time where it's going to impact you. And, you know, and we see it around the town. The other thing, the last thing why I see very often in this town is electrical power failures. Why do you see them? Well, again, a lot of it has to do with Commonwealth Edison. It's a lot better now than it was 15 years ago. We're having people putting in backup generators, you know, as an insurance. Because the power goes out when it's 8 degrees outside and a wind chill of 15 degrees, that's a consideration that you have. So one of the things that I really love about living in this town is people say, I've got a problem on my own property, I'm going to try to solve it. I'm going to go to the village, get their concurrence, because if I could learn something from somebody else that had a problem and basically came up with a solution, I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear it, and my neighbors would like to hear it. You know, so we've got a lot of concerns here. You know, impact studies, downsizing, enrollment in schools, construction, utilities, and I'm sure there are a few more that, you know, that other people could bring up. So I basically will tell you this. The ball's in your court, and I think you really have to listen to what has been said. And I'd like you people to respond to some of these things. Maybe not tonight, but you know, it's all on record here. And I think it's incumbent, and as professionals who we entrust, and we entrust you to make good decisions. They're not always going to be 110% right. There's a lot of things that go into account, a lot of things that we cannot predict. But what we know that is there, we have to address with information, and basically not look just at the long term, look at the short term, and have a solution that comes up. I hear myself here, if I were to look at this, and I'm not a construction guy, but I would say I'd like to see less density in there. I'd like to see people feeling that that water retention plant is going to solve most of our problems. I'd like to see people not knowing that the water that comes off the roof, we have to worry about it, you know, where it's going to go, so we don't have these problems, you know, down the line. There's a lot of things that I think have not been answered yet. And I really believe that it would behoove us to not move into this thing as quickly as we'd like to put it on the schedule for a yes or no vote to move ahead. Because once that vote is taken, it's very difficult to come back and say, gee, it woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's all I have to say.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Perino.
Excuse me.
Hello. My name is Rachel Muldowney. I live at the intersection of Lawn and Park Street. And forgive me, this is my first meeting, so I took some notes down while I was in here. First and foremost, I echo everything else that the others before me have said as far as the water flooding issues and the density. For me as a mom of a young child, I think the construction for me is the biggest concern, living right there at the corner. The disruption it will have on just the normal traffic, not to mention, you know, there's already traffic during morning school drop-offs, picking up kids in the afternoon. I know I wrote this in my my email today, but you know, in the summer when people have landscaping trucks, it's a disruption. I mean, you're kind of like dodging when you're coming in off Wolf or trying to get to Wolf. It's dangerous. And then you add in one of my favorite parts of living in Ridgewood is all the kids. There's people on bikes. There's moms pushing strollers. There's dogs. It's such a lively environment to be in, and I love it. That's why my husband and I moved here. But you know, just this image in my head of, you know, I don't know all the plan for construction and where things are going to be, but I have to imagine there's going to be construction trucks lining, you know, within Ridgewood. You know, there has to be, and that to me is what's really, really frightening. And so I also mentioned it in here, you know, I'm surrounded by, all of my neighbors have young children, under 10. And, you know, I think it's the coolest thing. Even before I had my daughter, I'm like, you know, sitting watching TV with my husband, and I'm like, oh my God, look, all the little boys are running across our backyard to go to their backyard. I mean, every single day, it's kids running everywhere. And, you know, my 1-year-old's not quite there yet, but like, I sympathize for those parents where all of a sudden, you know, there's all this construction, all this traffic, like, that's just another element of worry. Not to mention, I don't know if you guys live in Western Springs or where you live, but you know, when there's games at the Ridgewood Park, I mean, that in and of itself is it's really dangerous for pedestrians. It's dangerous for people driving a car. There will be both sides of streets lined up with cars. Like, how's that going to play out if there's a game and there's construction trucks everywhere and all that? It's just in my head. It's just crazy commotion and chaos, and I'm having a hard time reconciling like how this is really going to play out. One comment that I think came up here, and I'm certainly not an expert in real estate, but as someone who has moved to the area in the last couple years, the economy, you know, home prices were a little less when I moved here, but I have a lot of friends who have wanted to move out here in the last couple years. $800,000, it's a lot of money, but that doesn't exist. A new home, townhome, whatever, for $800,000 in this area, that's a unicorn. So as far as young families, I absolutely think young families will, and I'm not against young families, you know, moving to the area, but I think it's really hard to believe that this is going to be strictly retired people who want to, you know, downsize. My parents want to downsize, and I'll tell you, they're not downsizing to somewhere that has stairs. So the whole idea of them not having a yard, or like, I think that young families who want to live in this desirable area, it doesn't matter. Like $800,000, brand new. I have friends who bought a house in the last year that paid like $600,000 for a home that's way older and not nearly as big as these townhomes. So I do think that is something to consider as far as density. I know this was like an estimate earlier in the presentation, but as far, I think it was said like 5 cars maybe would be coming in and out in prime time. Like, I challenge that. I think that's ludicrous to think there would only be 5 cars in and out during rush hour traffic. Unless we assume that every person living in these townhomes does not work or is retired or works from home, that just seems like a stretch. And as someone who's constantly leaving in the morning for daycare drop-offs and picking up in the afternoon, it's hectic. There's only 2 entrances in and out of our neighborhood. And then lastly, I guess, again, this is my first meeting, so I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I put this in my email. I mean, from my perspective, there's a lot more that goes into this, I know, and I'm not fully aware of all of that goes into these decisions, but I just think that plot of land, as we've heard from other people, there's been water issues for what sounds like a very long time. It just seems like there has to be a better solution for a better use of this land for our community, not just Ridgewood, like for our community. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, my husband and I love to go out to breakfast. We were bummed when Hashtags closed. Like, let's get a little restaurant in there, a coffee shop. I just think we could better utilize this land for our community. Again, I know that's not the point of this meeting, but I guess I'll just close with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Valone, can we talk about the construction concerns raised? I think the parking and the construction traffic, because it won't be in Ridgewood, right? It would be contained within the development?
That's correct. I can take that, or Attorney Juice can take that. The draft development agreement does contain provisions that the construction traffic is not permitted within the Park Place area, or even within the Heritage Springs, as that would violate the agreement they currently have. So the construction traffic is required to be contained on the site. The provisions of the development agreement include that, and also that there would be a hefty fine for anyone parking in areas that are not permitted. It would be a $750 fine per vehicle to both the developer and to the actual offender.
Yeah, and in addition to parking concerns in Ridgewood, developers not allowed to have any of its contractors, any of the subcontractors, any of the material suppliers park or use Ridgewood streets. They're not allowed to stage materials in Ridgewood. And if this project is approved, any construction will be all contained within the project site. None of it will spill over to any adjacent property. And as Director Valone said, there's significant financial penalties on a per day basis, if those terms aren't followed.
So there's enough room for all the trucks that would come in and out on Wolf Road to be staged on this property?
I think the developer can answer that, but at the last meeting, they did indicate that they would build in a sequence, phasing it, as they move through the project area. But he can address that.
So you're telling me there isn't going to
I
be,
think they want him to address that. Sorry.
I was gonna ask for some clarification before you address it.
Oh, all right. Same topic, sorry.
so you're telling me there's not going to be any construction vehicles on Grand Avenue, on Park Place, on Lawn?
I'm not telling you there's not going to be, but if they park there.
But they can still
they'll
drive through there.
Well, they're public streets, so.
Yeah, but that's going to be increased congestion. That's not, even if they don't park, that's more vehicles coming through that subdivision.
But you have to look at the access point to the development, and there's essentially one access to the development, so I don't know why they would drive through Ridgewood to get to the Wolf Road access point.
I don't know why either, but a lot of people are cutting that corner at 55th and Wolf to come down Grand, out Park.
And that, again, if this gets approved, if that's an issue, that certainly would be fair game for public comment to come back and to have the developers stop that. And I would assume they would be responsive, to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Construction phasing, I think we're talking about. Our plan is to build our model on the first building pad to the left as you come in off of Wolf Road. And then we are going to start from the north end of the subdivision up by Heritage Springs and kind of build our way out. So I would envision the first 4 buildings on the north end being the first buildings, and then we'll just build our way out to Wolf Road at the end.
I'd like to ask you an unrelated question.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any consideration to making the streets in this project and the parking in the project, the pervious surfaces that you see in places, I think some towns have it, Morgan Arboretum has it, where it's like interlocking little concrete, I don't know what you'd call it, bricks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we haven't considered that, but part of our pond design is we are doing volume control in the bottom of the pond, where it's designed to act somewhat similar to that.
Is this what I asked about earlier, the box down at the bottom?
No, the box
The
is.
square, there's a square at the bottom of the project, actually it'll be the north end of the project. What I asked Director Koza?
Well, we're replacing a lot of the retaining walls to expand the pond. And then there's that's the main part of the pond that's on the Lawn Avenue right away. And then that pond expansion goes between units 21 and 20, or 20 and 21 also. So I think that's the area you were talking about.
It was, but back to my original question, is there any benefit to putting in these pervious streets, or is it just something the Arboretum does to be?
It's not
Good
going to,
neighbor.
there's going to be no true, I mean, in our instance, there's not going to be any substantial detention improvement to do an impervious paver across the whole.
Pervious paver?
Right, correct.
You don't see it of any sort of value because you don't have a lot of
I think
surface?
between the fact that we're already reducing the impervious surface on the property by 10 to 12%, by the fact that we're expanding that detention facility, we're naturalizing that detention facility, we're doing a volume control in the bottom of that detention facility, which catches that first 1 inch of rainfall and lets it absorb down through the ground. I think that's a very good plan. The one thing I'd like to put in maybe to perspective of the issues in the area, there's 180 acres of LaGrange Highlands coming to this property without detention. If you were going to properly detain that water, in a perfect world, you're talking about 20 acres worth of detention. That's what you would do to properly detain that water. You're gonna, so the 2.5 acres that this property is, it's 10% of that. You're gonna blow out the shopping mall, the Heritage Springs, you're gonna, everything along Park Avenue and going up to Grand to the fire station. That's really the area you need for detention to serve this area. Look, I think I mentioned the last meeting. We have a design engineer. The village has their engineer. They have a design engineer they brought on. We're going through Cook County Highway Department now. I have a meeting with MWRD in a couple of weeks. I got a lot of eyes on this thing, and we can't promise everything, but we know that we're not making anything worse with this proposal. So,
Just like a question to make it really, really basic for me. How much, like now it absorbs 5, let's make it easy, 5 gallons before it starts flooding people's yards. How many new gallons is it? Like, are we doubling the retention pond amount?
we're
of
approximately
water?
doubling the detention facility, yes.
So if when it starts to flood in the crazy incidences or the 100-year rains or whatever, is that amount assumed to be then contained, or are we still saying that it still might dribble out a little bit if it's twice as much?
Well, on our site, that water is going to be primarily contained in our pond. We do have some ponding in the street that will occur in the very highest storm event at the very far north end of the development. And that was one of the reasons why we expanded that green space on the north end. That way, we've got some there is some ponding in the street, however, it's not in front of any of the units.
So you can still drive a car and
You can still drive a car.
just have soaky grass over there?
I'm sorry?
Just have like really wet grass over there?
On the other side of on either side of the street, well, yes.
So you're saying it's a 200-acre detention basin is what you would need to fully and adequately
About 20.
take care of?
20 acres.
20 acre.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 10 times the size of your project.
Correct.
So reducing your project from 29 units to 24 units is not going to be that consequential
Yes.
when we're talking your 1/10 of the amount that would be needed to cover the rainwater coming from the Highlands in a 100-year storm.
That's right.
How much, this may be for you, how much responsibility does LaGrange Highlands have for this water that gets shotted to us? None? They can just dump it all and there's no repercussions?
Yes, under Illinois drainage law, we have to take the water that comes from what's called a dominant property, and where this is a subservient property, so, and you can't change the water flow.
Just because we're lower, you mean?
Just because we have, LaGrange Highlands is the dominant, the higher property, we have to take their water, it passes through us on its way to Flag Creek. We can store it as best you can, hang on to it with release rates, but at the end of the day, you can't make things worse downstream, and you can't, change, how it comes off the property, if it, impacts surrounding property. So, you know, that's all been addressed by the drainage folks.
Yeah, Jeff?
Jeff?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So, we don't have any control over LaGrange Highlands. Now, development in LaGrange Highlands has requirements similar to, they have their own requirements with the county or MWRE or whatever. But what we're seeing in this area is kind of a result of development that occurred prior to detention standards. You know, a new subdivision goes in now, you have a detention basin that's sized to handle a 100-year event. LaGrange Highlands, Western Springs, most of these areas were built without detention facilities. Now we are, we requested from MWRD, and they are in the process of starting up a study of the watershed here to try and figure out what exactly that possible detention solution could look like. I don't have they haven't started the study yet, but it is something that we asked for, knowing the fact that we need to do some long-term planning here to figure out what it could look like. I can't verify the numbers that were stated by Mr. Berry, but I would agree that the site itself is not, even if it were a complete detention basin, it is a fraction of what we would need to control the flooding. But we are trying to figure out a plan forward to know what that could look like. Where could it be placed in the Highlands? And then we could work with our partners in the Highlands, the township and Cook County, to try and move towards that solution. We don't have it, obviously it's not ready yet. We're just in the process of getting started, but it was something that we requested. We already felt it was important enough to have it as one of their stormwater partnership projects. So we're excited to get that result. But this is something that we're trying to look at because we know ultimately not one property in this area is going to solve it. We need to figure out a comprehensive plan to figure out which properties combined together could address it.
But fixing the infrastructure over there too, which I know is not happening yet, but it's on the docket and being engineered today right now, will also improve the situation of flooding there, right?
What's infrastructure?
The Ridgewood project.
Yeah, so the Ridgewood project that we are finalizing design on and hope to build later this year, that project will prevent what happens right now on Ridgewood Drive itself, where you have a significant amount of stormwater pounding on the roadway, flooding the entire street, almost the entire right-of-way for a couple blocks. We are preparing plans and construction plans to build a essentially larger set of pipes and inlets to take that water to Flag Creek, where it's trying to go right now. Our infrastructure there is too small pipe-wise and not enough inlets to take that water away, so water comes at us, it eventually hits there because it's running downhill essentially off to the west. It's all trying to go to Flag Creek, but there's on the west side of the street, the homes block it, so it just sits in the road for several hours and it makes it inaccessible to emergency vehicles. It's not a good situation. So the project that we plan to implement will get rid of that water, but it will not address the root cause of the water coming towards us. But with the board and the staff, it was important to at least get that project in because it does address the immediate concern. At the same time, we're working towards the plan to figure out what the detention option could look like so that perhaps down the road that project isn't as vital as it is because we're able to store it upstream. So it's kind of a two-pronged attack. Unfortunately, there's no easy answer, and the fact that we don't have control over the Highlands directly makes it more challenging, but it doesn't mean that we can't take a look at it and figure out what it needs to be and then begin work with our partners to get to that point.
Thank you.
So the timing on that again, Jeff? On the
So-
project, the Ridgewood project, the Ridgewood Drive?
Oh, Ridgewood project. We're expecting that construction to start this summer. Should be complete by the end of the year. And then the study itself, I would expect to be getting that started here late winter, early spring. I've already had communication with the MWRD team on the scope of the engineering work, so we're about to start that up finally.
I want to continue to add some clarity here. What Jeff is talking about is controlling flooding on Ridgewood Drive. not controlling flooding in Ridgewood. Those of us that live on Grand, Long, Meadow Lane will still flood. So that's not being addressed. And as far as this 20 acre, you can have all the studies I want. We had a study about Heritage Estate. They told me we would not flood. That was a lie. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know, but it was a lie. When you talked about Timber Trails, and it had development, and all these families came in, but that wasn't thought that was going to happen. Why? Probably was based on a study, right? Some of the same studies we're getting right now that really are not applicable. There's reality and there's studies. So I think when we're going to be studying Ridgewood flooding in the future, we shouldn't be cutting options now for how that water can be retained. John Barry said you needed a 20-acre area. We didn't have a 20-acre area when Mr. Gake donated that land, forced by the village to donate it, as unbuildable. There were still the strip mall there was still the apartment building, there was still Boone Animal Hospital. We didn't have flooding, so that was not 20 acres, but reality is we didn't have flooding. So anything we can do to increase retention is going to be helpful.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to
Anybody
speak?
Laura Jost. I have to reiterate, thank you all for not just rolling with a decision and not taking each one of these comments and emails seriously. We do have a lot of flooding trouble. In addition, we have more children walking to Highland School. It is a safety concern. Those one-way roads, I mean one lane for each way, is just not enough. It really isn't in Ridgewood. We've got everything going on all the time. Walking, running, games at Ridgewood Park and throughout. There's just not enough space for all of that. Even more is I remember a few meetings ago, the owner saying, let's just get on with this, and really discounting everything that was going on. And that was appalling, to say the least. So to really thank you for really giving this good, wonderful thought and listening to what's going on, because abhorrible is all I can say.
Thank you.
All right, hi, my name is Erin Miller. I apologize for the redundancy, but I share a lot of the same concerns that Rachel shared and a lot of the other speakers shared tonight. I'm going to go back to the traffic study. My understanding is that it was completed during spring break for Highlands. It's really important to just kind of consider the number of students who are walking, biking, the number of parents that are pushing kids, little kids, in strollers on the way to Highlands on a daily basis. My son is 5, he is in kindergarten, and he is getting onto the roadway and he's crossing Wolf Road. And with 29 additional units right there on Wolf Road, that's potentially 60 additional cars that are driving past my 5-year-old who's trying to cross Wolf Road, right? That's 60 more cars that are driving past me, pushing my 2-year-old in a stroller. You know, we go to school every single day. My son plays Little League at Highlands Fields. So we are commuting back and forth by foot multiple times a day. And I just really would beg people to take a closer look at the traffic that we do already see. The amount of cars, the amount of foot traffic, pedestrians, bikers, scooters, strollers that are walking, moving to and from our area right there on Wolf Road. Ridgewood is far more than 10 in an hour. And so I would really just emphasize kind of going back to that. I also, again, have concerns about construction traffic. Big trucks coming in and out of Wolf Road blocking the view of kids who are exiting Ridgewood. is also a significant concern. Again, I'm going to go back to my 5-year-old, his friends, they are on bikes. They are 5. They don't necessarily have the safety awareness skills of older kids, but they're 5. And so really kind of considering that too, those trucks are going to be blocking views of those little guys who are commuting. And we just really need to be considering the safety of our kids, our families, as we continue to make these decisions.
Thank you.
I take it, Mr. Barry, we'd have a flagger if you're taking a truck out onto Wolf Road. There'd be a flagger or somebody to make sure that you've got a guy up on a truck. Those sort of things are construction standards. Do what I mean by that?
Well, for the run-of-the-mill of construction traffic during the day, or carpenters coming. Yeah, so like run-of-the-mill traffic coming in during the day, like the construction, the carpenter crews coming on site, there would be no flaggers per se. Typically, we'll use a flagger on main streets if we're working on that street, if we're making a water main connection in that street or something to that effect.
I guess the resident was concerned about a big dump truck making a left or probably a right out of that lot, where they're elevated pretty high up.
Right. Well, again,
safety concerns with that.
Well, on a daily basis, I would not have a flagger out on the site every day to construct to move traffic in and out of the site.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Close the comments?
Yeah, we can close public comment.
Okay. I just want to say I really appreciate everybody coming out and everybody sharing their opinions, their concerns, meeting after meeting. It's important for us to hear from you. All of the work too from the Plan Commission. I appreciate the comment about how we let this go over several meetings and a lot of time going into this, because it is. We don't do this kind of thing often. And so it's important that we hear all of this. We hear from the developer too. They have done a lot. They've worked very closely with staff over the last several months. This has been going on for many months now. And again, now we're to the point too where I know the board is considering all of this and all of these points. And all of it is because everybody cares about this community. We see that with all of you, and we do too. So I want to close this part out by expressing that thanks to everybody. Everybody's been working really hard on this. And you guys keep coming, and we get it. It makes a difference that you're here. So, thank you. Trustee Naraki, back to you.
Yes, last item on my list here is the 4300 Howard Avenue, First United Methodist Church, Hinsdale First United Methodist Church, plat of abrogation for a public sidewalk easement and dissolve a conditional use permit. At the last meeting of the board, we discussed the First United Methodist Church's plan to sell the property to a builder and restore the adjacent right-of-way area on 43rd Street to a traditional residential parkway. The board reviewed the item and directed staff and the village attorney to finalize the documents for consideration. The applicant requested updates to the documents and to place the item on the February 10th meeting for formal consideration. Does anybody have any questions with that?
Just to back up really quick, as Director Bayer mentioned, the organization of our agenda was more along resolutions. So items 8A and 8B, 8E and 8F were discussed at your last meeting and are on the omnibus tonight. And then Trustee Naraki is providing an update on an item that would have typically have appeared on your agenda tonight as we had heard it discussed at the last meeting, but the applicant asked us to delay until the 10th to make updates. So again, under section 8 of your meeting, items A, B, E, and F are all items that were previously discussed on the January 13th meeting that are on your omnibus. And then the 43 Howard First United Methodist Church item typically would have appeared on your agenda tonight, but the applicant has asked us to shift that to the February 10th meeting to make updates to the documents.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll read the first one, which was we discussed on, do I still have to read through it even though Director
No,
Vallone
I
spoke to it, or are we
think
good?
Director Vallone covered, so
Okay.
items A, B, E, and F are on the
Omnibus
omnibus.
for tonight
And
for-
yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was wondering about before with the
Yeah.
agenda when we first started.
Okay.
And that concludes my report for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Taraki. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 9, Public Works and Water. Trustee Fink.
Thank you. Items A through G were previously discussed and are on the omnibus for voting tonight.
Thank you very much. Now, item number 10, Properties and Rec Committee report. Trustee Avakian.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to add items A and B to the omnibus. They've all been previously discussed, but to add the custodial contract renewal between Vega Building Maintenance and the HVAC maintenance services with YMI Group. The other items that have also already been discussed for the omnibus are the tree trimming service with Winkler Tree and Lawn Care, the landscaping service with Berry Landscape, and the tree removal with Desiderio Landscaping. And that's the end.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, agenda item 11, Public Health and Safety. Trustee Lewis.
As we previously discussed items A and B, and they'll be in our omnibus later this evening. I do have a new item. Two of our police officers hope to join other area law enforcement personnel in an active shooter training exercise at Advent Health Hospital in LaGrange on February 4th. And to make that happen, we need to have a signed training participation agreement in place with the hospital. Village Attorney Charusik has reviewed the agreement, and we hope to approve that under new business later this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, very good. Moving on then to action on these items, and specifically regarding the omnibus voting procedure. The Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items contained on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and the Board of Trustees on at least one occasion, and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there any such request from these items? All right, if not, Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, President Rudolph. I'd move that the following ordinances, resolutions, and motions as contained on the meeting agenda for January 27th, 2025 be adopted and/or approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 14A, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with National Power Rodding Corporation of Chicago, Illinois, for the 2025 sewer televising and cleaning program in an amount not to exceed $105,000, consistent with the 2022 pricing schedule. Note the 2022 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter B, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with Murphy Construction Services, LLC of Burr Ridge, Illinois for the 2025 sidewalk shaving program for the contract unit price of $19.55 per inch per foot, and in an amount not to exceed $20,000, consistent with the 2024 pricing schedule. Note the 2024 contract was competitively bid. Agenda letter C, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with Vega Building Maintenance Incorporated of Romeoville, Illinois for the 2025 janitorial services contract in an amount not to exceed $41,907, consistent with the 2023 pricing schedule. Note the 2023 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter D, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with the YMI Group Incorporated of Elk Grove Village, Illinois for the 2025 HVAC maintenance service contract in an amount not to exceed $17,995 for quarterly inspection and maintenance services consistent with the 2023 pricing schedule. Note that the 2023 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter E, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with Winkler Tree and Lawn Care of Bellwood, Illinois for the 2025 tree trimming services contract in an amount not to exceed $105,000, consistent with the 2023 pricing schedule. Note the 2023 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter F, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with Beery Landscape Management LLC of Brookfield, Illinois for the 2025 landscape services contract in an amount of $44,020 for monthly maintenance work and a total budgeted amount not to exceed $91,779 for seasonal planning, holiday decorative work, and additional request services consistent with the 2024 pricing schedule. Note the 2024 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter G, a motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the renewal of a contract with Desiderio Landscaping and Tree Removal LLC of Grant Park, Illinois for the 2025 tree removal services contract in an amount not to exceed $75,000, consistent with the 2023 pricing schedule. Note the 2024 contract was competitively bid. Agenda item letter H, ordinance number 25-3234, an ordinance approving and adopting an updated long-range land use map to the Western Springs Official Comprehensive Land Use Plan for purposes of reclassifying the zoning designation of the 917 Lawn Court property, Western Springs, Illinois, from the R4 Multiple Family Residence District to the A Single Family Residence District to allow for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a single-family house. Agenda item letter I, ordinance number 25-3235, an ordinance approving a map amendment to rezone the 917 Lawn Court property from the R4 Multiple Family Residence District to the A Single Family Residence District. Agenda item letter J, ordinance number 25-3237, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of surplus personal property owned by the Village of Western Springs, Well 3 Motor, and authorizing Lane, a company of Granite Construction Incorporated, to complete the necessary decommissioning and regulatory procedures required by the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the State of Illinois for a cost not to exceed $25,662. Agenda item letter K, ordinance number 25-3238, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of surplus personal property owned by the Village of Western Springs, Well 3 meter and Well 4 meter. Agenda item letter L, resolution number 25-2862, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement between the Village of Western Springs and Epstein of Chicago, Illinois, for the development of a safe routes to school village-wide travel plan and related services, not to exceed fee $74,957. Agenda item letter M, resolution number 25-2865, a resolution appointing a delegate and an alternate delegate to the Intergovernmental Risk Management Agency, that's IRMA. Agenda item letter N, resolution number 25-2868, a resolution authorizing the approval and execution of a vendor contract for goods, supplies, and services with Water Resources Incorporated of Elgin, Illinois, for the purchase of water meters, flange kits, connecting spools, MIUs, and associated equipment at unit pricing outlined in the 2025 Q1 Neptune pricing list. Agenda item letter O, resolution number 25-2869, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an employee leasing agreement between the Village of Western Springs and MGT Impact Solutions LLC to retain the services of a part-time HR project manager. Agenda item letter P, resolution number 25-2871, A resolution approving and authorizing the execution of Amendment Number 2 to Professional Services Agreement with Baxter and Woodman Incorporated for plan review and stormwater management plan review services for the proposed Heritage Crossing development at the 5600 South Wolf Road property by developer McNaughton Development LLC. Agenda item letter Q, resolution number 25-2872, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a license agreement between the Village of Western Springs and the Timber Trails of Western Springs Community Association regarding the installation and maintenance of license plate reading video cameras and related equipment and a support pole adjacent to the Wolf Road north of Plainfield Road. Agenda item letter R, resolution number 252873, a resolution authorizing and approving the execution of a cost-sharing intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois, and the Village of LaGrange, Cook County, Illinois, for design engineering for the Invest in Cook-Gilbert Avenue STP resurfacing project from Ogden Avenue to 47th Street. Agenda item letters S, resolution number 25-2874, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a second updated professional services agreement between the Village of Western Springs and V3 companies for the performance of construction observation and closeout/acceptance services related to the Timber Trail subdivision. And finally, agenda item letter T, resolution number 25-2875, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement between the Village of Western Springs and Baxter and Woodman Incorporated for the performance of Phase 1 design engineering services related to the Gilbert Avenue resurfacing project, not to exceed fee $110,000. Finally, there's an asterisk, ordinance number 25-3236 and resolutions number 25-2866 and 25-2867 are reserved for future items.
Thank you very much, Trustee Terrell. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Vacan.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
President Rudolph.
Aye.
The ordinances, resolutions, and motions contained in the agenda of January 27th, 2025 are hereby adopted or approved.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, going to new business, we have a couple of reappointments that were mentioned earlier. I think Trustee Avakian.
I'm sorry, yes, this is where I spoke too soon. I want to make a motion to approve the reappointment of Martin Healy as a member of the Recreation Committee for a 3-year term to expire February 28th. Anyone care to second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And then also, I would like to propose a motion to approve Winfried Lindy as a member of the Recreation Committee for a 3-year term to expire on February 28th, 2028.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. May we have a roll call vote for that, too?
Yes. Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And I think we have another one then that Trustee Lewis, you were going to motion.
I have resolution number 25-2870, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a training participation agreement between the Village of Western Springs and Adventist Midwest Health, doing business as U Chicago Medicine Advent Health LaGrange Hospital, regarding the conduct of training exercises. So I move that the resolution be approved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
And may we have a roll call on that, please?
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Vacan.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our agenda. Any other old business? Item 17. Okay, moving on then to reports. The monthly financial report. Trustee Chen.
Yes, thank you. There is a financial report in the packet for tonight's meeting, but I'm just going to highlight a couple items. I am going to read about the investment activity for December 2024. The Illinois Metropolitan Investment Fund, IMET Convenience Fund, average daily yield was 4.37%. The October or November activity for the Police Pension Fund was unavailable at the time of past financial reports. In October, the Police Pension Fund posted realized and unrealized losses of negative 2.05%. The Police Pension Fund posted realized and unrealized gains of 2.29% and maintained a trailing 12-month return of 17.08% at the end of November. The December activity for the Police Pension Fund is unavailable at this time due to delays in reporting from the Downstate Consolidated Fund, Illinois Police Officers Pension Investment Fund, and will be reported in future reports. The market value of the police pension portfolio is approximately $20,419,000 with an additional $575,000 in cash on hand at the end of November. The Federal Reserve rate remains high, target range of 4.25% to 4.5% as of December 2024. So just wanted to note that, and now I'm going to call out the general fund. It ended the year with a surplus on a cash basis. There will be adjustments made in the 13th period as the statements are converted to a modified accrual basis. Sales tax collections and LGDF distributions are in line with anticipated amounts included in the budget. Revenue items that exceeded expectations in 2024 were building permits, plan review fees, and investment income. Annual expenditures in the general fund have been lower than expected, mostly due to position vacancies throughout the year. Expenditures were on target for the month, but will be adjusted for expenditures incurred in 2024, but invoiced in 2025. And always a favorite, the water consumption. The consumption billed in December, which is the period September 15th to November 15th, 2024, was 21% higher than the consumption billed in 2023 for the same period. But the annual consumption is approximately 4.63% lower than 2023. And I will end it there for the financial report. Do you want me to make a motion? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the December 2024 financial report.
I will second the motion.
Very good. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Vakian.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Trustee Chen.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to offer just a brief report on infrastructure and specifically on the water main breaks. I don't know if the rest of you get the notifications of the water main breaks, but we have had a busy January, and I want to thank the Public Works crews for all of the work that they do. One thing we have to always remember too is we have a small crew. The same people who are trying to take down the holiday lights are the same guys who are in the ground with the water main breaks. So just to put it all in perspective, in 2024, Public Works crews responded to 74 breaks, which were throughout the community. I think, again, it's pretty interesting to get the texts, right, because you can see where they are, and they don't discriminate. They are just everywhere throughout the community. And they don't happen from 9 to 5. They happen kind of throughout the day and the night. Those that occur during the day, they disrupt the water service for residents and businesses. And then the late night and early morning, of course, is the strain on the crews, not to mention the other. More than half of those breaks occurred on water mains that were installed prior to 1940, just again to put it in perspective. But also that number, the 74, that's more than double what we had in 2020. So if you look at kind of what's happening year over year, in 2020 there were 34. So we're double, 217% of what we were then. And just each year it's gone up, with an odd dip in 2023. But it went up from 2020 each year, up to where we are now at 74. The first 25 days of this year, we've already had 10. So, I mean, I hope that doesn't continue. at that same pace, right? Because we'd be projected then for over 100. Also too, and as we've talked about with a lot of this, a lot of these breaks, I think, let's see, in some of these as recently as last week, those breaks, they occurred under roads that were reconstructed within the last few years. So we're going in and we're having to tear up a road that we just put in. So anyway, that's just, those are just kind of the facts of it, and just, as we all know, infrastructure continues to age. And we always want to remind people to look this up on the website. We can find this and other information about the infrastructure. But importantly, again, is a thanks to the crews and the work that they're doing, especially with the cold. And I know I was given a little video of what this is like. I wouldn't want to be doing this at 10 o'clock at night when it's 5 degrees and down in a hole. So I can't thank them enough. So thank you. Village Manager Bear.
Yes, I have a few items. Just on the subject of infrastructure, the 2025 infrastructure referendum virtual open house took place this past week, and the recording is available for viewing at www.wsprings.com/ref2025. Under the open house information tab, you can find that link if you'd like to rewatch that. It was well attended by the folks that we saw, and it did have a number of Q&A pieces at the end. Our next open house will be in person on Tuesday, February 11th. We hope to have many more people come out and visit from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Thomas Ford Memorial Public Library. Again, that's Tuesday, February 11th, so coming up next week, about a week and a half. And then there will be a third open house, which it will be held in March, and location is still to be determined. A couple of other items. The American Public Works Association Suburban Branch awarded the Asset Management Award to the Village of Western Springs Capital Infrastructure Plan. The award was accepted on January 22nd by the consulting team and several members of the staff who were present to accept the award and answer questions from their peers. So thank you to everyone who attended, and congratulations on that award. Congratulations also to the village board, because without your guidance and direction, that plan would never have come to fruition. So it is certainly being recognized as a very unique and a project that I think will be emulated by many other communities in the future, bringing together all of our infrastructure and better understanding what we have to tackle in the next 20, 30, 40 years is certainly something that other communities would like to have. That said, the American Council of Engineering Companies is also planning to award their Special Achievement Award for this project, and that award will be bestowed on February 27th, so we look forward to being recognized by that group as well. And then lastly, this is the last week for the recycling of unwanted strands of holiday lights. Lights can be dropped in the collection boxes at Village Hall, Village True Value Hardware, or the Thomas Ford Memorial Library until January 31st. Again, that's lights only, no plastic bags and things like that, but we've had quite a lot of lights brought to be recycled. So we look forward to working with the green team and getting those recycled and out of the landfills. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Attorney Jerusik.
Short report, no report tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
That'll be my motion to adjourn tonight's board meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Ellen, thanks for the reminder. I have a bunch of lights in my face.
Bill, I had two
Just
boxes I
waiting.
kept taking back and forth.